Welcome to the Arlington Street Church podcast. Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
This story is called Christmas Dinner at Steeple Church. When Ali was 10, his father died. Ali, his dad Samuel, and his mom Ariel lived in San Diego, and they were happy. Now Ali and Ariel were very sad. Ariel thought it would help them both to be closer to family, so she and Ali moved to Chicago. They had attended church together in San Diego, and Ariel thought it would help her and Ali to have a church here. So they went to Steeple Church. Ariel liked the rainbow flag and the welcoming green door. Ali did not want to go. "It will be good for us," Ariel told him. They went to Steeple Church every week and started to get to know the people there. They met Miss Ronnie, who worked in the church office and asked a lot of questions. They met Mr. Edward, who always wore a bow tie, and Sparkle, who greeted people at the door, always wearing different colorful glasses. He called them his Eltons. And they got to know Reverend Ramona. She had twinkling eyes and a gentle voice and was very kind. Christmas was a big deal at Steeple Church. It was only July, and they were already starting to plan their annual Christmas Sunday dinner. "I think we should go," Ariel said to Ali. "I don't want to have Christmas this year," Ali said. The months went by, and it was November. After church, Ali and Ariel were greeted by Reverend Ramona. "It's so good to see you both. Ali, how are you doing with our winter weather?" Ali shrugged. "Some of the kids your age were planning a hot cocoa bar for Sunday Christmas dinner. I hope you'll join us." "I don't want to go," Ali said in a big voice. "Ali," his mom was embarrassed. Reverend Ramona was calm. "Why not, Ali?" she asked. "I don't want to have anything Christmas if my dad can't be there." Ali ran off, and Reverend Ramona watched him as she tucked her silver hair behind her ear. One of the great things about Reverend Ramona is that she is always learning. "I have an idea," she whispered to herself, "and I think there's still time." Reverend Ramona called the Sunday dinner committee, the Christmas Sunday dinner committee, to tell them her idea. They were on board, but it was going to be a lot of work. They spread the word and asked for help. Did anyone have extra tables they could lend? What about extra china? It was the Sunday before Christmas, and Ali woke up to the smell of arepas, his dad's favorite food. Samuel made them for every holiday and told Ali stories of his grandparents who were from Colombia. Ali was excited for them, but then remembered his dad wasn't here. He stayed in his bed for a long time. Eventually, Ariel came to get him. "Hi, sweetheart. Remember, we have the dinner at the church tonight. We can go for a little while, and if it doesn't feel good, we can leave, I promise. Before we go, can you do me a favor and find a picture of your dad? Pick one you like. I need it before we leave tonight." Ali sighed, went looking through his pictures, and sent one to his mom. They arrived at the church, and the basement had been transformed. There were lights everywhere, and there were tables pushed together to go all the way across the room. Ali didn't think the church had this many people. "Welcome," Sparkle said. "Please find your names at the table." Ali and Ariel found their names. Ariel sat her stuff down in front of her. "Ali, look," and motioned to the seat next to her. Ali looked and saw his dad's name. Ariel pulled a framed picture out of her bag. It was the picture Ollie had sent to her. She placed the frame next to Samuel's place card. Then she pulled out a big plate of arepas. "Look around, Ollie," she said. Ollie looked around and saw that there were framed pictures all around the table. Reverend Ramona stood up. "Welcome to our Christmas dinner. This year you'll notice there are more places at our table. One of you taught me an important lesson, that for Christmas to feel like Christmas, we need to include the people we love, including those who have died. So this year, I've asked you to tell me about those people so we can include them at our table. I've asked you to bring their pictures and foods and traditions. Next to my seat, I have this picture of my sister Rosie. She died 20 years ago. I miss her so much. Her favorite Christmas tradition was reading the Polar Express. I'd like to read you my favorite part to share a little of Rosie with you. I invite you to tell your neighbors about your loved ones and the traditions you shared." Ollie joined the others in walking around the table. He learned about Miss Ronnie's cat Sophie, who loved to play with yarn as she knitted Christmas gifts. He learned about Sparkle's husband, who made amazing gingerbread cookies, and about Mr. Edward's mom, who loved the Nutcracker. And Ollie and Ariel told them all about Samuel and shared his arepas. Now that there was room for Samuel at the Christmas dinner, Ollie didn't want to leave. And he realized he wasn't alone in feeling sad. And he even felt okay, laughing at Sparkle's dance moves and Miss Ronnie's Christmas sweater. Reverend Ramona came by to try an arepa. "I want to thank you, Ollie," she said. "You taught me that we need to make a place for the people we miss at our Christmas table. It's so important that they're there. You know, with a place for my dad, I don't feel as sad. Or maybe it's that I feel many things." Reverend Ramona's eyes twinkled. "Did you see Sparkle's dance moves?" Ollie answered by dancing. "Oh, come on," Sparkle yelled. "My moves are better than that." And they all laughed.
A season of great joy is upon us, when traditions from around the world mark the winter solstice, celebrating the turn towards the light on the shortest day of the year. Christmas, Yule, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all kindle the flames of faith. Faith, the belief that somehow things will be better, despite the fact that sometimes there's scant evidence. Or, as Hebrews 11 states, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. The assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Even though there may be dark clouds on the horizon, now is the time to celebrate the joy of this season and to hold on to faith. In his beloved book, The Polar Express, Chris Van Allsburg writes of a child's faith. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me that I would never hear, the ringing bells of Santa's sleighs. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late at night, I did hear sounds, though not the ringing of bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and I saw a train standing perfectly still right in front of my house. It was the Polar Express. I took the conductor's outreached hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children as we steamed our way north through cold, dark forests and high mountains. And then, there it was, the North Pole. It was a city standing alone at the very top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift, we all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor let us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. They pranced and ran about, ringing bells hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard before. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointing to me said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up and I sat on Santa's knee and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could ever imagine, but the thing I most wanted for Christmas was not inside Santa's bag. What I wanted more than anything was one of the bells from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "The first gift of Christmas." A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names, and he cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed up into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared into the cold, dark, polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the bell from Santa's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children cried. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and I waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas," he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle, and it sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one small little box behind a tree. It had my name on it. There was a note as well. And inside the note, I opened it, and it said, "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I took the box and I opened it up, and it was the bell. I shook the bells, and it made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I had shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a single sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell. But as the years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear the sweet sound of the bell. Though I've grown old myself, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe. Can you hear the bell? Can you? Can you? Let me hear. Let us hold on to this faith, the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. And let's pass this faith forward. Merry Christmas.
One of the things I love about being a Unitarian Universalist is, as you've already heard this morning, the fact that our sacred texts come in so many forms. So I suppose it was just a matter of time before I was sharing from the pulpit story from a Netflix drama. This is neither a Christmas story nor explicitly Unitarian Universalist, but it captures our theology really well, and it's about an angel and a star. It's from a show called Sex Education. And this is a retelling adapted from my friend and colleague, the Reverend Claire Feingold Thorne. In the show, the teenagers mess up, grow up, care for each other, figure out who they are and who they want to be. And so do the grown-ups. And there is one character named Eric F. Young, played by a Rwandan Scottish actor named Shuti Gatwa. He is also the latest Doctor Who. The character Eric is bright, sparkling as new ice, eyelids covered in glitter, lips painted with shimmery gloss, ears hung with dangling earrings. He is kind, hopeful, funny, queer, and Christian. And he isn't sure if he can reconcile all of those parts of himself. In some settings, he feels that he needs to hide his queerness, and in other settings, he feels he needs to hide his faith. In the last season, the show gives Eric a magically surreal journey. An angel appears to him again and again. Sometimes she's an unhoused person, sometimes she's a drag queen. As the book of Hebrews says, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." One time, the angel encounters Eric on a bridge, and she appears as a magnificent flying being with wings. Eric has just left his church, thinking he had to sacrifice his spiritual identity to fully embrace his queerness. But the angel is not having it. Dressed in gold and shimmering with light, she looms over Eric. Eric is also dressed in gold, and his garments sparkle as brightly as the angel's. and Eric falls back, afraid. The angel calls back to Eric with a loving voice. Eric Effiong, you are my precious child. You are brave and bold and positively effervocious. Eric is confused and he says, I don't think that's a word. The angel booms, are you arguing with God? Eric says, no, maybe you're trying to say effervescent, which is very kind of you. And the angel interrupts and says, shh, shh, listen. Eric closes his eyes. He listens. And all he hears is birdsong. And when he opens his eyes, the angel is gone. Eric is left searching, trying to follow the star that will guide him to himself. There are so many forces in this world that, like King Herod, want to silence us, to keep us separate from each other and our deepest selves. Forces that tell us to hide, to divorce parts of ourselves, or wonder if we can ever be loved as we truly are. Reverend Emily Scott, a queer and genderqueer pastor, says that the journey to follow our stars always carries some risk. Whenever truth and love are revealed in the world, forces of hatred and fear will try to blot them out. I don't know what each of you here has experienced in the lifelong journey to be the person God made you to be, but what I do know is that you've probably been told somewhere along the way that your fullest self was not of God. Whether you heard it from your family who couldn't accept you in your fullness, from the kids at school who can be so incredibly cruel, from your pastor or priest, sometimes the places where we should receive affirmation are the very places that cast us away. Don't be afraid. God has been making misfit families of those who found themselves on the outside for thousands and thousands of years. The character Eric's spiritual journey toward wholeness continues over the course of the final season. And in the last episode, spoiler alert, Eric is desperately searching to find a friend who's in trouble. And instead, he encounters the angel again. This time, she's not magnificent or winged or flying. She's just a girl in a tracksuit standing right in front of him. Eric weeps. What do you want from me? The angel says, this is the start of a long, hard road, but I will be with you every step of the way. You will change hearts and minds and let everyone know that I love them for who they are. This will be your calling. This will be your life's work. Eric replies, I don't think so. The angel takes Eric's face in her hands and she says, I made you this bright so that others could see in the darkness. I made you this bright so that others could see in the darkness. Eric closes his eyes again and asks, what do I do now? And all he hears is birdsong. And when he opens his eyes, the angel is gone. May we all learn to shine bright with all of who we are so that others might see in the darkness.
There are so many things that are joyful and magical about this time of year. But air travel is typically not one of them. Did you hear about Delta Flight 1238 out of Atlanta a few days ago? The cramped and cranky passengers had been sitting on the tarmac for over an hour when they received the news that the replacement flight crew they were waiting on to take off was stuck in traffic. Amid the rapidly escalating tension on the plane, an unassuming man stood up and opened the overhead bin. Passengers watched him assemble a saxophone and were a bit bewildered when he began walking up the aisle playing "O Holy Night." Wayne Hoy, a retired veteran who played with the U.S. Army Band for 20 years, soon had the whole plane clapping and calling out requests for favorite Christmas carols. In addition to the holiday classics, Hoy had a huge hit with his rendition of Baby Shark. That one got the toddlers dancing and the adults singing and laughing. Fellow passenger Katie Daly said, "It was such a beautiful moment, especially in this time when strangers don't often give each other joy. Wayne's playing was lovely to witness and a gift during a stressful travel time. Wayne is a light in the community. We need more of that." In December of 1933, an unusual advertisement appeared in the Canton Repository. If your family is without work or warmth, food or medicine, housing or strength, I would like to help. Hundreds of letters poured in to the mysterious donor's post office box. This was the height of the Great Depression, and people were out of work and out of hope. The promised help arrived in the form of 150 personal checks. Many were for as little as $5, but in the midst of a desolate Christmas season, the modest gifts were a welcome bright spot. No one knew who among their neighbors was responsible for this great kindness. 75 years later, Ted Gupp was cleaning out the attic of his grandparents' house and found a suitcase filled with hundreds of desperate letters, 150 canceled checks, and a tiny bank book in which the disposition of $760 had been carefully recorded. Gupp was stunned to discover that his grandfather, Samuel J. Stone, was Canton's anonymous benefactor. An investigative journalist, Gupp was hooked. He devoted 2 years to finding and interviewing hundreds of the descendants of the original letter writers. Gupp's research culminated in a book and a reunion at Canton's Palace Theater that brought together 400 people whose lives were touched by the checks. Journalist Christopher Magg covered the event in the New York Times. For the older people, it was a chance to remember the hard times. For the relatives of the letter writers, it was a time to hear about how the small gifts in the bleakest winter of the Depression meant more than money. They buoyed the spirits of an entire city that was beginning to lose hope. From the stage of the Palace Theater, Ms. Helen Palm, aged 90, read from her yellowed letter. "I am writing this because I need clothing, and sometimes we run out of food." J.L. White, father of 7 children, wrote in his thank you note that he was considering suicide before he received the anonymous gift. For other families, Mr. Stone's gift provided the only holiday cheer that grim winter. Olive Hillman used the $5 check to buy her 8-year-old daughter a doll with a porcelain face and leather arms. "I was thrilled to get it," Geraldine Hillman Fry, now 85. It really was the only doll I ever had in my life, so it meant a lot to me. Days before Christmas, with Mr. Stone's gift in hand, Edith May took her 4-year-old daughter, Felice, to the Five and Dime and bought her a wooden horse. 77 years later, Felice May Dunn owns 2 farms and 17 Welsh ponies. In my life, it made a big difference. Ms. Dunn recalled, "It was my favorite toy." In 2024, we're in our own version of a bleak Christmas season. As we approach this holiday marked by generosity and gift-giving, many of us are feeling bereft in our spirits and maybe in our wallets too. Like the 3 wise men wondering what to bring to the baby in the manger, we ask, what have I to give? In the spirit of Wayne Hoy and Samuel J. Stone, let's give kindness in abundance this year. As my colleague, the Reverend David Blanchard says, when it comes to kindness, the best advice I ever got was this: think small and just keep repeating. Merry Christmas. I love you.
This morning, we say goodbye to our beloved Reverend Liz Weber, who's been a member of the Arlington Street community for more than 20 years. Liz's journey is taking her home to Ohio, and so we surround her with our love and the knowledge that though she will be far away in body, she is part of us and we are part of her. So with lots of clergy to lay hands and blessing upon you, we send you forth with love from this congregation and the prayer that the longtime sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the clear light within you guide your way on. We love you, Liz. Say something to you.
Thank you all. I love you so much, and I'm so grateful for all that you have seen me through and all that you have supported me in. My love is with you always.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.